Welcome into Second Down right here on ESPN Radio. Christian Gokel, glad to have you alongside on this Friday afternoon. We had the day off yesterday, Cam. Unfortunately, didn't go the way we wanted it to go with the Atlanta Braves as they fall to the Philadelphia Phillies 3-2 on opening day. We'll dive into that here in a second. Also, have a lot to get into. Final Four coming up this weekend. Roy Williams has retired at North Carolina. Some college football news to get into as well. But Cam, before we go any further, there's a lot of people out there that were doing some real honest work and keeping us appraised of what's going on in Major League Baseball. Now, obviously, with everything getting shut down last year, some of the news that we had from 2019 going into 2020 kind of went by the wayside. And I think one of the biggest storylines that got swept under the rug that was COVID-19 was the Houston Astros cheating, right? Like they never got their comeuppance from the different fans in the different stadiums because there were no fans in the stadiums. Well, that changed yesterday when they took on the Oakland Athletics. And man, Cam, the A's fans did not forget. They did not forgive. They were out in full force with their trash can signs, banging on seats when Houston Astro players would come up to bat. I mean, just doing good, honest work out there, Cam, not letting folks forget.
I'm glad fans are back. That's what the game is for all sports. Fans make the game 100 times better. But this might be going on for years with the Astros. We all know, even not just Americans, everybody, we hate cheaters. We don't like cheaters. We don't support them any type of way. So I'm glad that happened, but I'm glad for fans to be back. That's where I really take it as.
Absolutely. And again, going back to the Braves, man, they fall to the Phillies 3-2 in 10. We got to see once again the new extra innings rule where they start with a runner on second base. The Braves not able to get their runner across, and the Phillies with a clutch 2-out hit in the bottom of the 10th walk it off, and they win the game, Cam. But I thought, to me, it was just another storyline, very much what the Braves struggled with last year, which was making the small, correct baseball plays. I mean, we know you can hit home runs. We know you got speed in the outfield and you're flashy with the gloves at second and short, right? But just getting a guy to third and getting him home. The Braves struggled with that a lot last year, which sounds crazy to say because they probably had the second best offense in Major League Baseball, but we saw it rear its ugly head again. Freddie Freeman did what he was supposed to do, which was get the runner to third, and then Marcell Ozuna flies out and Ozzie Albies gets thrown out at home. So you have a runner at second and you fail to get him home with three different at-bats there. So, I mean, or two different at-bats and then a double play with Marcell Ozuna's pop-out. It's one of those things. Look, there's 161 more games, but you look at Freddie Freeman, Ozzie Albies, and Marcell Ozuna, they combined to go 1 for 14 yesterday, right? Dansby Swanson, he didn't have a hit on the day, but he also left one about a half a foot short of getting out for a 2-run home run early in the game right there. Not going to overreact, but I can understand Braves fans' frustrations with what happened yesterday because it was a lot of the same things that we dealt with last year.
Yeah, no point of overreacting, but there is a thing. Like you said, 162 games. They have 161 left. It's things you have to work on throughout the season. It's just the slow grind to where you want to get at the end of the season. It's a lot of stuff. I mean, it's 161 games. They can work on that halfway through the season, even 60 games before the season ends. They can get it all together. So by playoff time, they'll be successful, but they'll be all right. I don't like the extra inning thing because they was up
I'm not
2-1.
a fan of that either.
I don't like that. I don't get the point of that. You're making games longer in a long season anyway.
Well, I think
I don't like that.
Make it shorter, which I mean, it kind of worked yesterday, but I'm not a huge fan of that because it's just playing baseball for 9 innings and all of a sudden you're just giving somebody runs.
Yeah, basically, I don't like it. That doesn't make any sense to me. Just why are we changing the rules in all these sports? Just keep them how they are.
And I thought pretty good day from Christian Pache. It was a windy day out there in center field for him wearing number 25, man, Andrew Jones number. It takes a lot to go out there and wear something like that. A lot of people think should probably be retired by the Atlanta Braves, but he had a double in the game. Pablo Sandoval with the clutch 7th inning pinch hit home run for him there to tie the ball game up because Nola was just dealing all day against the Braves. But Pablo Sandoval comes up. Brian Snitker once again pulls the right trigger off the bench, and Kung Fu Panda showed why they kept him after spring training, right? He's like amazing clubhouse guy, right? But he hit 400 in spring training with some pop, and we saw that as he was, I mean, if you put money in the pool, he probably wasn't the guy that you were picking to be your first Braves home run hitter of 2021.
Well, you need other guys to step up, period. Like that. Well, you like seeing that. That's the good part. You want to have a collective unit so by the end of the year, you're ready to go. The grind is to get to the end of the year, have this team ready so they can make that push again, just like last year.
And kind of a rocky start for Max Fried. And just watching him the last couple of years, you're going to get one of those starts, like 1 out of every 4 to 5 starts from him. The other 3 to 4 are going to be amazing. It's going to be Cy Young level stuff for Max Fried, but just 1 out of every 4 to 5 starts, he's just going to be a little clunky. Yesterday, with the curveball and the fastball struggling to locate both of those, like either the curveball was high in the zone or it was falling away towards the guy's feet, or like way outside where Travis d'Arnaud, he got his money's worth yesterday playing around in the dirt back there. But still, that just kind of shows you how good Max Fried is, right? Everyone's saying it wasn't a great performance from him, but still, he goes 5 innings, only gives up 2 earned runs, and the Phillies had to scratch and claw to get those 2 earned runs out there. But he threw 94 pitches in just 5 innings. That's obviously something that's got to concern Brian Snitker. You want 94 pitches in 7, 8 innings from Max Fried, a guy who pitches to contact a lot. He did have 8 Ks yesterday, though, so I thought kind of an up and down day for Max Fried yesterday, but nothing to worry about going forward.
Yeah, he'll be fine. Also, it's just first game of the season. I wouldn't say first game of the season jitters, but you rather all this happen right now, the first game of the season, the first 10, 20 games, than the last 10, 20 games where everything matters.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Just getting the kinks out. That's all it is.
We had the 60-game season last year, and so everything was just a sprint to the finish. There's going to be 5, 6, 7 game losing streaks during the season. There's going to be 8, 9, 10 game winning streaks during the season, right? It's just, can you limit it? Can you make sure you're staying in the race? And I think it's probably a 3, maybe 4 team race. If I had to say, I put the Nationals, the Mets, and the Braves as the 3 favorites to win this division. But the Phillies have a really good squad. I just don't know if their depth is there to keep them going with those other 3 squads. But on the flip side of that, you see a series inside the division get canceled. The Braves have 2 more with the Phillies, and then their next 3 series after that are against all division foes. So a good chance here to get off to a really good start inside the division. Just go ahead and build that 3-4 game lead if you can do it. Not taking anything away from game 1. Like I said, Aaron Nola's number 1. He's amazing. Number 2, not many times this season we're going to see Albies, Freeman, and Ozuna go 1 for 14. The one guy I will say I'm concerned about in there is Ozzy Albies, because he kind of had an okay season last year, obviously dealing with that wrist injury, but just kind of an okay season. But the positive I'll take away from this one, Cam, he goes 0 for 5, but only 1 strikeout inside of that. The other ones, he was able to put the ball in play. Maybe you start getting that ball to find some holes coming up, because Ozzy Albies, you need him in that number 2 spot. If you remember last year, Cam, it was Acuna, Freeman, Ozuna a lot in that 2-3 spot. Now you've moved Albies back up into his traditional 2 spot with the DH out and hoping he can be back and be healthy. That's the only guy I would be even slightly concerned about, maybe having to move him down the order.
Well, at least he was connecting on hits last night. He just wasn't getting on base. So that's the positive part. Struck out once, like you said. But yeah, if they could have 4 guys in the rotation that could just, nail the ball out the park or get on base, it would just make them even more lethal. So you got a point.
Yeah, and Ronald Acuna smacking the ball yesterday. He gets 2 hits, including a double there. Had a walk as well. Currently sitting at 500 batting average through 1 game, but he seems like he's already in midseason form. We saw that in the spring. A guy a lot of people are predicting to hit 50-plus home runs coming up this year. No game for the Braves tonight. They get the day off, but they'll be back tomorrow afternoon, 4:05 first pitch against the Phillies, and we get to see the debut of Charlie Morton. I guess the reappearance of Charlie Morton in a Braves uniform as he'll take on Zach Wheeler for the Philadelphia Phillies. And then coming up on Sunday, 1:05 first pitch for the Atlanta Braves, Ian Anderson will make his season debut against Zach Eflin right now for the Philadelphia Phillies slotted to get in there. So some really good matchups coming up. Hopefully seeing this offense spark to life for the Atlanta Braves. Got a lot to get to on today's show. Again, going to talk some Final Four, Roy Williams and his retirement from North Carolina. D'Orlando Ledbetter, good friend of the show, he had a bold statement on Twitter yesterday. We'll talk about what D-Led had to say in terms of the Falcons fans coming up. And Cam, if you're doing a job, right, you're getting paid money to do a job and you lose a finger, is it maybe time to start looking for a new line of work? We'll dive into all of that coming up next on Second Down. Second Down on ESPN Radio is presented to you by the Uniform Source. Cam, we have Final Four action coming up starting tonight with the women's Final Four, and then the men's get it going tomorrow afternoon. Davion Mitchell, local guy out of Liberty County, leading Baylor for a chance to get to the national championship. But Cam, amazingly, coming from behind at the beginning of this tournament, one BJ Bennett currently leading our office pool. I have excuses. I don't watch a ton of college basketball, so I, like most fans out there, was just picking based off gut feeling with a lot of these games, right? Like I've watched a few of this teams this year. Obviously, I've watched Gonzaga, I watched some Baylor, watched some Houston, but some of these other teams have been pretty shocking. But Ken, what's your excuse for letting BJ get way out in front of you?
I'll be honest. This year, I was not a college basketball watcher. Usually, I like Kentucky. They were terrible, probably the worst team they've ever had in a long time. I just wasn't a college basketball watcher, wasn't really interested, but I did watch Gonzaga and Baylor. I watched some of these tournaments at the very end, and I'm like, wow, okay, this is getting a little interesting, but I knew Baylor and Gonzaga, they were kind of lock-ins for me at the end of the day. I did feel that way, and it looks like that. It looks like it right now.
Yeah, UCLA, man. I mean, from the first four to the Final Four, right? A team that had lost a lot of games coming into the tournament, got hot at the right time. I mean, do they have any shot against the Zags? Because the Zags are looking like one of the more dominant tournament teams we've seen in a while.
Well, I'm not going to say they don't have a shot, because I remember 6 years ago, 2015 Kentucky, they were probably better than this Zags team, 40-0, and I was like, oh, nobody's going to beat them. And then they lost to Wisconsin with Kaminsky and Sam Decker. So it can happen. Yeah, it can happen. But do I think it will happen with UCLA? I just don't see it. Just with the size Gonzaga has, they're huge, and those guys can move and shoot the ball like no other. So I give UCLA like probably a 10% chance.
And then again tonight, starting at 6:00 on ESPN, South Carolina and Stanford going head to head in the NCAA women's basketball tournament. And then 9:30 tonight, 3-seed Arizona will go up against number 1 UConn, Gino Auriemma. You have the player of the year on that team. Nothing against Arizona and Stanford, Cam, but South Carolina, UConn, and that national championship would be lit. So looking forward to those games coming up tonight. Other news, Roy Williams, a guy who won over 900 games in his career, 3 national championships, chose an interesting day to announce his retirement, Cam, on April Fool's Day. A lot of people thinking, all right, Roy, we'll see you next year. That's a funny dad joke. Not a joke. Roy Williams done, saying, quote, I don't feel like I'm the man for the job anymore. I guess that, Cam, saying getting out there, recruiting these guys, getting the best level of athletes to North Carolina and making consistent Final Four runs. I mean, it was a rough year for most blue bloods in college basketball this year. And then you have just a plethora of players taking advantage of the transfer portal. I'm not trying to say those are the correlations between Roy Williams choosing now to retire, but maybe just something that's been on his mind, and no time like the present, man. Go ahead and let somebody else get in there and try to get this program back to where it needs to be.
Yeah, I was shocked. And, out of the 3 guys, Krzyzewski, Boeheim, and Roy Williams, he's going to be the first one to leave out of that trio, that historic trio.
Never retiring.
Yeah, I don't think Jim Boeheim's never going to retire, nor is Mike Krzyzewski. I don't think he's going to retire either. I was shocked. I thought it was an April Fool's joke, but if you look at what UNC's done the past year or two, they haven't been as successful or UNC like we always thought. So I think this might be the perfect time for Roy Williams to say, okay, Hubert Davis, that's who I think is going to be the next coach, his assistant coach right now. Here is the keys.
That seems to be the guy that a lot of people are thinking is going to be the guy who takes over. But I'm curious, Cam, because we've seen this before in college basketball and in college football. Not Mike Krzyzewski, John Calipari at Kentucky, right? He was at Memphis, a highly successful college basketball coach, and Kentucky came calling, and you just don't say no to Kentucky. He said that. They asked him, they're like, why did you leave Memphis for Kentucky? He said, because it's Kentucky, right? There's just certain jobs you don't say no to. And I'm not saying there's any correlation or anybody tying these people in the school together, but Mark Few at Gonzaga, right? He's a guy who has consistently built a great program out there. They're the most dominant team, odds on favorite to win the national championship in college basketball this year. If North Carolina comes calling, though, can you say no, right? I mean, I understand you've built a program out at Gonzaga and you have a ton of great players out there, some lottery picks this year, but is it the consistent infrastructure and the fan support and the TV contracts and the endorsements that you get from North Carolina, right? I mean, Roy Williams' contract was double that of Mark Few, right? Making twice as much money per season as Mark Few. Is North Carolina just a steal your girl kind of job, right? Like it just comes in and say, hey, we want you to be here. You're here now, right? Is it that level of a job?
Heck yeah, James Worthy, Michael Jordan, Ty Lawson, Hansbrough, Vince Carter, Jameson. It's so much history with that program. It is, but I don't think Mark Few is going to be the guy that goes. I was thinking.
I feel like North Carolina pretty much. There's like 4 or 5 schools where they probably couldn't, and one of them is their rival Duke. Kentucky probably can't do it to them, but I'd say 99% of schools got nervous when Roy Williams retired because North Carolina can come and take your coach from you, no problem.
Yeah, that is true. I'll give you that. If they go to Gonzaga and say Mark Few, I'm sure Mark Few would say no. But if Villanova, Jay Wright, that's a perfect coach. If they knocking on Jay's door and saying like, Jay, come down to UNC and be a part of Michael Jordan and Vince Carter, this legacy, how does he say no to that? Definitely being in the old Big East where it's not being in the new Big East where it's not the old Big East.
Sure.
If I was Jay Wright, I'd take that. I'd take that job in a heartbeat.
We just saw it happen in Texas, right? Chris Beard, head coach at Texas Tech, was just a play or two away from winning a national championship when Virginia won their national championship. Texas came knocking, and now he's the head basketball coach at Texas instead of Texas Tech, right? And when people are like, well, why would you leave? You left your program. You left the guys that you had built around, and you had gone in and sat in their living rooms and said, hey, I'm going to be here for your entire time at Texas Tech. Why would you leave? Those dollar signs, man, they make a pretty big difference in situations like this. And like I said, just the infrastructure. But I will say this, though. I wonder how many coaches on the flip side of that say, is the pressure of being not only the coach at North Carolina, but the guy replacing the guy worth it when you're already established at your job like a Mark Few, right? Where you have complete job security, you're good, you're pretty much untouchable, right? And you're going to have that $1.8, $2 million rolling in every year versus you can get double that if you go to North Carolina, but you don't make it to the Elite Eight in a couple of years and all of a sudden that seat starts to get a little warm. Is it worth it?
It's worth it, but that's very true. When you're at North Carolina and these blue bloods, you got to give me Elite Eight, Final Four every 2 years, maybe 3 pushing it, but you have to make it. Me being a Kentucky fan, I get mad when they don't even make it to the Final Four sometimes. So, or just make it, past the Elite Eight. So it's a lot of pressure with it. That's why you go out there and make sure you get the right coach if you're UNC.
Yeah. Because I think about it in the SEC, right? I mean, a lot of people are like, why weren't they able to go out there and get that guy, right? Like, we're Arkansas, we're Mississippi State, right? Like, we want to go out there and just be able to pick whoever we want. We're Auburn. We want to go out there and be able to pick whoever we want. What do you mean guys are turning us down? We're Tennessee. Why would you turn us down? And I think it's just math that you have to play in your head if you're one of these coaches, say at a G5 level where you're really successful. And I'm putting numbers out there just average wise. Say you're making $1 million a year, right? You're a Sun Belt coach. You're making $1 million a year, and an SEC school comes calling and says, we want you to take over. We can offer you $5-6 million a year, right? And so if you do the math in your head, Cam, you're saying in 3 years as the head coach of this SEC school, I can make $18 million to be the head coach. There's a good chance after 3 years I don't get the job done, I'm fired, but I still get paid $18 million. I would have to coach 18 years at my Sun Belt school or equivalent to make that much money. I think that's the decision a lot of these coaches have, but I also think a lot of them hold out for jobs that don't have quite that much pressure. And like you saw Gene Chizik get fired a couple years after winning a national championship at Auburn, right? I mean, it's a hot seat. Just talking to BJ about this earlier, not many coaches in the conferences like the Big 12 and the SEC and the Big 10, not many of those coaches just walk away. Right? Like how many coaches can you really think of that have been just, all right, I'm done. I'm ready to go. I'm leaving. You usually get fired. 90% of the time you're getting fired. The coaches who really walk away, the Urban Meyers, Nick Saban hasn't been fired from a job. He's just chosen to jump to his next job. Steve Spurrier is a guy who walked away. We have a guy like Mark Richt, who's one of the best coaches in SEC history. He got fired, right? Like, it's very rarely is it you walking away on your own terms. And I got to imagine it's just that money is just too good.
Yeah, and here's the thing to that. Nick Saban's been so successful, but imagine he has three losing seasons these next 3 years. Like, we know it's not going to happen, but imagine that happens. They're going to be calling for his job, but he's won I don't know how many national
Oh,
championships.
Nick Saban goes 10-3 next year, 9-4, something like that, and then doesn't make the SEC championship the year after that. There's gonna be a lot of people calling in a fine bomb saying, I don't know. I think Nick maybe the game's passed him by. Maybe it's time for him to retire.
And that's crazy. That shows how much pressure it is at these big time schools to just win. And he's won at the highest level against any coach, basically. But your point is making right there. Imagine if he loses a lot. It's a lot of pressure, and people are going to want his job.
Again, Roy Williams, an extremely distinguished career, over 900 wins in his career, 3 national championships, just put so many players in the lottery and into the NBA. Really going to miss him in the game of basketball. Hopefully, his predecessor has the same amount of success, and we don't see what typically happens in situations like this, where it's not always great to be the guy that follows the guy. You want to be the guy that follows the guy that follows the guy. Is really where you want to be in these situations. We got a lot to get to. A big show coming up today on 3 and Out. Well, we're going to catch up with the Falcoholic himself, Dave Choate, talks some Atlanta Falcons as they have an interesting decision coming up with the number 4 overall pick. Speaking of the number 4 overall pick, D. Orlando Ledbetter, our good friend from the AJC, had an interesting opinion about that. We'll dive into that next right here on Second Down. Welcome back into Second Down right here on ESPN Radio. Christian Gokel alongside Cam Ursery. Glad to have you alongside on this Friday afternoon. We are, of course, presented to you by the Uniform Source. Cam, a big sports weekend coming up. A couple of Braves games on the docket. Obviously, the Final Four is coming up this weekend as well. But next week, can you feel it, Cam? Can you hear the music? Can you smell the azaleas? The Masters back in their rightful and beautiful and plush time of early April in the spring. Azaleas blooming. You'll have all of the traditional voices on the call this year. Some fans in attendance at the Masters. Are you excited, Cam? Are you amped? Because we don't get to see the soft version of Augusta, which we saw in the fall, where Dustin Johnson set the course record because everybody was out there throwing lawn darts. We get to see the beautiful, difficult Augusta National that we all know and love.
Well, for everybody that knows, I am not a huge golf watcher, but I have been notified by this for a long time because my best friend is a huge golf watcher, and this is what he's been talking about for the entire year. The Masters, the Masters, the Masters. So yes, I know a lot. I know it was coming up. I know it's going to be some good golfing out there. Bad weather though, but you know. Hey, I've already known about it. He was talking about it literally last night. Okay, so I knew about it.
We're gonna have to work on this. We're gonna turn you into a golf fan before this is all said and done. Look, you can educate me on the G League guys and some of the AAU stuff going on. I'm taking you to school, to Q school, if you will, with some golf coming up. But Dustin Johnson did win in the fall, so he gets to choose the Champions Dinner, Cam. And what that is every year prior to the Masters, they bring in all the former champions, and you can only get in if you have that green jacket. There's a few guys that have a few of them. They can kind of choose. Like Tiger can be like, which one do I want to go with today? But all the champions get to come back, and the guy who won the previous year gets to pick his dinner for this, right? Guys in the past, I know Tiger Woods done like fajitas in the past with sushi. When he was 22, he did like fried chicken sandwiches, cheeseburgers, and milkshakes, right? I mean, it was just like nothing fancy here. We're just doing burgers and shakes, which I ton of respect for Tiger on that one. But Dustin Johnson had put out his menu, and see if this does it for you, Cam. Appetizers, pigs in a blanket, and lobster and corn fritters. I mean, that's a pretty solid start. First course, house salad or Caesar salad. Then you get the sides, mashed potatoes and spring vegetables. Main course, filet mignon and some miso marinated sea bass. And then for dessert, peach cobbler and apple pie with vanilla ice cream. I mean, Dustin Johnson, much like the Eagles, just playing the hits.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Filet mignon, pigs in a blanket. Yeah, that sounds real good. Okay, I can take that.
Risky, right? There's nothing crazy, just something everybody likes. If you don't want the filet mignon, if you don't eat red meat like a lot of them don't, then here's some sea bass for you, some miso marinated sea bass. But I think Cam and I will take the filet mignon. Thank you very much, with the mashed potatoes and the vegetables and the fritters and all of it. Give me all of it. But Cam, I'm curious, what would yours be? You win the Masters. You get the green jacket. You're walking in there. You're talking to Tiger and Jack and everybody else. Phil's lefties hanging out over on the side. What is your main course, number one?
Man, I love seafood, so I'll probably do like salmon and lobster or something like that. Or
so, what are the appetizers you're pairing with that?
Appetizers? Dang, I don't know if a lot of people have had it like alligator. I actually like alligator. Yes, really? Alligator. I remember the alligator we used to eat from Papados. That's really good. And crawfish. That would be. I love seafood.
What are the sides?
Ooh, sides. Mashed potatoes.
Okay.
Ooh.
Skin or no skin?
No skin.
Okay.
And I don't know the size. Maybe some beans, some type of beans. Maybe lima beans. Black eyed peas, something like that. I like lima beans and butter, right? Peas. Huh?
Just like coated in butter, right?
Oh, it's whatever you guys want. It can be coated in butter. I like it coated in butter or no butter.
See, I was thinking about this, and I've kind of gone back and forth between a few, but I mean, Georgia's like the chicken capital of the world, and I can't think of a better main course than just fried chicken, just good fried chicken. I mean, I just don't see how you beat that, right? I mean, Maybe for the appetizer, some like cold coastal shrimp, like some shrimp cocktail going on for the appetizer for the guys. I like the salad choice, right? A garden salad, maybe throw in a wedge salad in there, or the Caesar for the folks out there. Definitely some fried chicken on there. Now, what's your dessert, Cam?
Oh man, sherbet ice cream. I like ice
Really?
cream. Yes, I love ice cream. I like sherbet. Um, Man, that'll probably be it, or chocolate cake. I like chocolate cake as well.
Love a chocolate cake, like the German chocolate cake.
Yeah,
You
German
a fan
chocolate
of, you
cake.
a fan of red velvet with the cream cheese icing?
Red velvet's okay.
All
It's all
right.
right.
I mean, all it
It's
is food colored chocolate cake, but
yeah.
uh, I would go with like a soft serve ice cream bar,
Mm.
like where you get all the toppings on the side over there too. I mean, who doesn't mess up a soft serve ice cream? Like you get like either the vanilla, the chocolate, or the mix of both, and then you have like the different crumbled up cookies. You have the nuts. This may sound weird, but I'm a big fan of putting gummy bears in
Yeah.
the ice cream there. Like I said, soft serve to me, it's hard to beat that. And maybe if we're feeling crazy, do the soft serve ice cream and then get the chocolate dip that like hardens when you dip the ice cream in there. I'm just
Mhm.
saying, just get wild with it. I think that would be a crowd pleaser. Just a got to bring in the soft serve machine.
Yeah, that doesn't sound bad. The gummy bear, you got me with the gummy bears, and then maybe the gummy worms. That sounds perfect with some
Oh yeah,
ice cream.
when I was a
You
kid,
kind of making me hungry.
they used to do the worms and dirt. I forget, that might have been what
Oh,
it's
the
called.
Dirt Sunday, like at
Yeah,
Brewster's or
they
something
put a
like that.
soft serve vanilla ice cream with the gummy worms, and they would like crumble up a or
Hmm.
Oreo on top of it.
Yep.
That was the business. But again, really delicious Masters menu looks there for Dustin Johnson. Like I said, just playing all the hits, gotta love it. But also coming up on Saturday, Cam, Clemson. We will get the first chance to see the Clemson offense without Trevor Lawrence and without Travis Etienne coming up on Saturday when Clemson has their spring game. We know who the quarterback's going to be. I think the interesting spot's going to be who replaces Travis Etienne, the ACC's all-time leading rusher, has departed Clemson after a historically amazing career, right? I think you can make the argument that Travis Etienne deserves to be a top 10 running back ever in the history of college football. I know a lot of people think it's crazy, maybe recency bias. I get a feeling that Travis Etienne is going to be one of those guys. The further we get removed from his career, we will realize how truly dominant and amazing that guy was. I mean, never didn't go to the college football playoff, got a ring on his finger for a national championship, won ACC championships every single year he was in school. So now we got to see who's going to replace him. Will Shipley's the 5-star freshman everybody thinks is going to be the guy. Lynn J. Dixon has a ton of yards under his belt already. He's been the change of pace back with Travis Etienne in the past few years. He's going to be a guy we see get a significant amount of carries. So that's the main storyline going into the spring game for Clemson, Cam. I think the biggest storyline for the Tigers coming up in 2021 are the lines of scrimmage. Now, we know how traditionally great Clemson is across the defensive front, right? You think about the Christian Wilkins and the Clinton Farrells and all those guys they put into the draft that year, and just historically the Shaq Lawsons and the Vic Beasleys that they've had on the defensive line. That's what they're known for. But last year they were super young, right? And they got manhandled by Ohio State in the semifinals. Trey Sermon ran for, I think, 192 yards in that game. I mean, Justin Fields was cooking him through the air. Trey Sermon was cooking him on the ground. Just was not a great performance by Clemson in that game. And then on the offensive side of the ball, for as good as Travis Etienne is, he had a fairly disappointing senior year. And I think a lot of that had to do with the offensive line at Clemson. I think Travis Etienne was averaging about 1.8 yards before contact, which means he was getting less than 2 yards before someone was hitting him, and then he was having to make something happen. So Clemson breaking in a new quarterback who looks like the next coming of Cam Newton just with his size, or maybe Ben Roethlisberger, depending on who you want to say. Breaking in a couple of really good running backs. Hopefully Justin Ross is back for them at wide receiver. But those lines of scrimmage, Cam, those are where you got to focus if you're Clemson. And you do not get to ease into the season because think about it. Offensive line, trying to get cohesive, trying to get better. What's your first test of the season? How about Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Travon Walker, and Nolan Smith in your face? And on the flip side of that, you have Georgia's offensive line, which struggled very similarly to Clemson's last year, but still nothing but 5 stars on that line. That defensive line for Clemson is going to have to face. To me, that those lines of scrimmage are the story of the spring for Clemson.
Yeah, that's all that matters for Clemson right now. If you don't have a line of scrimmage, they're not going to be a good team. That showed in the college football playoffs. But being that they were young, when you're young, you have so much to develop and so much potential. And you just go into the next season with momentum. They still made it there. That's all that matters. They're going in with momentum. And like you said, they're going to have to play a good D line against Georgia. That's going to be a heavyweight matchup, probably the game of the year for the first game of the season, like the old Clemson and Georgia matchups. If guys remember with Todd Gurley and I think it was Sammy Watkins and maybe I think was it D Hop back in the day?
Oh yeah, D
D
Hop was
Hop,
there.
yeah, okay,
CJ
yeah.
Spiller, like they were.
CJ Spiller, those guys when Gurley had that long kick return, those days was good. So hopefully it returns to that. But yeah, the line of scrimmage, it matters a lot in college football, regular football in general.
And the guys you got to watch for Clemson on the defensive line, Brian Breesy and Tyler Davis are going to be studs. Brian Breesy, a true freshman last year, playing a ton of significant snaps for Clemson. He's just going to get better. And then, of course, like I said, when you get to that first game of the year, that offensive line is in for a rude awakening because you got big Jordan Davis coming back, Devonta Wyatt for Georgia as well. I think Jalen Carter's a guy who they said has really stood out in spring. And if you remember, big number 88, he had to fill in when Jordan Davis got hurt and was playing in the heart of an SEC schedule at one of the more difficult positions, the point of attack for Georgia's defense, and just help Georgia get back to another top 5 defensive ranking in the country. So that is going to be so much fun to watch week 1 of the season. Also in college football news, speaking of Georgia, Georgia's added a home and home with Louisville in 2026 and 2027. So in 2026, you will still have Georgia Tech on the schedule, obviously, but you'll also be playing UCLA as well as Louisville. And then 2027, you'll be playing Florida State as well as Louisville. And Cam, just a lot of thought process around that. People are, why are these teams going out and scheduling these crazy difficult schedules? I mean, Georgia has Ohio State, Oklahoma, Texas, and I'm forgetting somebody else just on their future schedules right now. A lot of people are saying this is because these ADs realize there's going to be a playoff expansion and you need the best strength of schedule you can get. You need those signature wins tied into your schedule going forward. Because, I mean, add on top of that, you're going to be playing an SEC schedule that's going to feature a couple of crossover games from the SEC West. I mean, these schedules are getting more and more difficult. And a lot of people think it's because we're going to see a playoff expansion.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. And yeah, it sounds crazy that they're scheduling games for 2026 and 2021. But I remember in 2014, they scheduled this Clemson matchup that's happening this year. I'm like, what are they doing now? Time flew and we're here now. But you're right. I hope the expansion comes. It needs to happen. Look at March Madness. Look at what the NFL is doing. It has to happen. It would be great for college football, which I think is the best sport.
And I think add some parity as well there, because we just see the pretty much the same teams get there year after year. There's like one rotating door, but the other 3 teams you can pretty much call Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama. Just go ahead and put them in at the beginning of the year. Speaking of scheduling news, the Falcons have been announced as a team that is going to be playing in England this year. They will be playing in Tottenham Hotspur's stadium over in London, Cam. And a lot of people upset about that because in the NFL, well, I guess now you could theoretically have 9, but you only get 8 home games, right? And now maybe 9 in addition to that, but you wait all year as a season ticket holder for 8, maybe 9 games, and now you're taking one of them and putting them in London. Just reading between the lines, to me, you know what Arthur Blank doesn't have to do when you play a game in London? He doesn't have to pay stadium workers, buy food for concessions, right? You don't have to pay those millions of dollars to operate Mercedes-Benz on game day, and you're probably getting a pushback from the NFL, or a kickback, excuse me, from the NFL for going over to London and playing in that game. A portion of proceeds of the tickets coming back to the team. I think much like college football teams, right, who make more money when they do these neutral site games because you're just getting a check and sending your team there versus having to pay to host it and pay the school to come in and pay for all your stadium employees. To me, this sounds like Arthur Blank was like, hell yeah, give me this because this is just going to be money in my pocket and we're hurting from last year.
Yeah, smart move. Smart move. I can't get mad at it because he bought that big playpen that's in downtown. That's a nice stadium.
That's a nice stadium.
Yeah. It's a nice stadium. So I'm sure he wants to, get a game off the book so he doesn't have to pay for anything. But when I saw it, I was like, dang, a game in London. All the teams that go to London every year, they kind of like a little poop. They have a bad year. And I'm like, will Atlanta be the same? I hope not. But that's all I took from it when I see
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's ever won a Super Bowl after playing a game in London. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe the Falcons be the first team. Won't hold my breath on that. We got more to come. Final segment of Second Down coming up next. Final segment here on Second Down. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us today. Big show coming up a little bit later on 3 and Out. We'll catch up with the Falcoholic himself, Dave Choate, at 4:35. Talk about what the Falcons are looking to do. But Cam, our good friend D. Orlando Ledbetter, he put out an interesting tweet. He said, quote, "I have them staying put and taking BPA, that meaning best player available. Fields, Sewell, or Pitts is how I have them ranked. Shanahan could stick it to him again and take Fields. If he takes Max Jones, Falcons get Fields." I mean, I think that makes a whole lot of sense to me. Justin Fields is gone. You don't like the quarterbacks that are back up there. Go ahead and give me Kyle Pitts or Penei Sewell.
Yeah, if Fields is not there, I say trade back a little bit. See where you can trade back and actually go get Surtain, and pair him up with AJ Terrell and see what you can do in the second round with 2 second-round picks, maybe, or a late first-round pick, and try to shore up this defensive line or whatever you need. But
Cam, I'm with you. I'm with you, and I understand where you're coming from. But when you go draft a defensive guy and he turns out to be good, pretty good, not great, but really good, and then you're just watching Kyle Pitts become one of the best tight ends ever in the NFL, or Penei Sewell just lock up a side of the line of scrimmage for the next 10, 15 years for his team, that's going to be another difficult Falcons pill to swallow, man. I mean, I understand you're like, listen, offense wasn't the reason the Falcons didn't win games last year.
What about Surtain? What if he does good?
Give me Kyle Pitts and watch those red zone conversions just change. Just watch him change.
True. Well, Surtain does good. What if we actually get Surtain? He's like the next Revis or somebody like that and locks up.
I hope he can cover Kyle Pitts. I hope he can shut down Kyle Pitts, because you could have had him. Big weekend coming up for the Braves. 4:05 first pitch coming up tomorrow against the Phillies, as we get to see Charlie Morton take the mound. And then on Sunday, in the final game of that series against the Phillies, the Braves will send out Ian Anderson to take the mound. So a lot of fun coming up this weekend for the Braves. So excited to have them back, and then we'll have full coverage coming up for you next week as they take on the Nationals. A lot of 4 o'clock first pitches, but we'll have all the coverage coming up for you next week. BJ Bennett coming up next on 3 and Out. We will talk to y'all on Monday.